Hi, welcome to my Week 7 multimedia discussion, Designing Systems for Conflict Management. My name is Alisha Salcedo, and this is for MPA 545. In this presentation, we're going to be reviewing a workplace conflict, then we're going to be going over the dispute resolution design, and then some training efforts for the conflict. So I do work for the County of Riverside Department of Public Social Services for the Self-Sufficiency Office. I do believe that this type of conflict is usually always happening, and I haven't seen a change. Um, when workers are processing cases a certain way, usually we always have to update the way we process cases. When there's an update of how the cases should be processed, there's always complaints between employees. There's no agreement on how it should work, and this usually tends to create conflict between the different levels of employees, especially depending on how long they've been there and what their opinion is. Um, and I just feel like this is just a conflict that should actually be addressed. I also found this video on YouTube. It's called HR Basics Workplace Conflicts. This is actually a really great summary of just how conflict occurs in a workplace, and it just kind of gives you just a brief description that it's due to like personalities, morale, ideas, and it just kind of just gives a summary of how the conflict evolves. For a dispute resolution design, I believe what works best for the specific conflict is to first have employees gather in all one section. I believe that splitting up the employees based off of their units or their managers isn't such a great idea, just because if one manager explains a policy one way and then another manager explains another policy another way, then those employees underneath the manager may like talk to each other and be like, hey, like I thought this and this, oh no, my manager said this, and it's not gonna there may not be that agreement. There may not be that clear picture of what they should actually do and how to actually implement the policy. So in order to prevent like a conflict between the employees and not having an agreement on a policy, it's best to have all the employees together at once and just kind of review the policy together, just to get an understanding, especially when a policy is just released. Because this could be like a quick meeting floor, like a meeting on the floor. This can just be a quick Skype. I mean, not that everyone's working from home, we're not gonna be in the office. So I believe that will be like a best way. And then once they're going over it, they can just do a quick round table just to be like, hey, did you have any questions on this? Are you comfortable? Just so they can make sure that everyone is on the same page. And usually when they are doing this, they can see like the facial expression. I mean, you can do this in person or even through Skype. You can see like if they actually do feel comfortable, and if you do notice that they're not comfortable, then you'll be like, hey, are you sure you don't have any questions? Because I look at your face and I'm like, you don't seem too sure. So I feel like if when policies that affect the way workers have to process cases, they need to be addressed right away, just so everyone can be on the same page. Because if they're not, then this is just gonna create more tension between employees, and employees don't need this type of tension in type of workplace. We just need to do our job, keep a great morale, and just do what's best for our customers. I did find two articles that were really interesting for dispute resolution designs. The first article, and I did attach both to the link. And the first one, it was just interesting because, they were just talking about how they do need mediation and arbitration in the workplace. And this is just for companies that deal with more complex issues. I mean, they're not dealing with just policy review. These are companies that deal with more complex issues, and for them, like, they need this, they need mediation, they need arbitration, they need binding agreements, just to make things work, to prevent escalation in their workplace. Also for the employment dispute resolution, this one was just interesting because they talk about how they do use the ombuds program, just to make sure that, well, it's not just to make sure, it's just to give a different perspective, just to have that neutral person there for the employees, just so it's just to help. I feel like for this type of conflict, an ombuds person is not recommended, just because that person is just a neutral person who's just giving his opinion on what should be done. And that's not really going to help the situation in this conflict. For the training section, I do believe that the workers should have either their supervisor or supervisor assistant host a training session for the complex policy that had to get updated, and that's going to be affecting the way they process their cases. This is actually needed because when you're not in agreement with the coworker of how things should be done just based because of what the policy says, then this needs to be addressed because when you read something, everyone interprets something different. The way that you think, it's not going to be the same as your neighbor thinks. So everyone has to be on the same page, especially because these benefits are for customers who depend on them because they're applying. This is a self-sufficiency office, so everyone, who is applying for them are in need of benefits, and workers need to be like fully trained just to make sure that they're giving the just giving their best and like doing what's right for the customers. So this is highly important to at least offer training when there is a change in policy. I mean, usually the supervisors, and all they have to do is just host an event, online, in person, as long as everyone's together. Once this event is hosted, then they can go through the policy in depth. They can go through each page, each section, ask any questions. Then after they're doing this, if people do have questions, then they can answer it. But then they have to go to explain further why is this expected? Because when a policy is written, there's a reason why behind it, and I believe workers need to know the why behind it to grasp it fully. To to when they're doing it, they understand why. They're not just doing it just because they're told to. They're doing it because it has to have some type of meaning for that policy. It's gonna have some type of effect either in the way because our systems can do it, or you have to do it a certain way just to allow an expense. I mean, it all depends, but the worker needs to understand the why behind it. I did find this video on the 7 steps for highly effective employee training and coaching. I think this was like really helpful because it kind of just gives you a guideline how to train, especially if you're trying to train for employees to prevent further conflict in the work environment. So it just kind of give like a few steps of like our tips basically of like what you should and what you shouldn't do. So I did also attach this link above. So I would highly recommend if you wanted to just see like how else you improve a work section. And that was the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening.